Fuzzy here. Let's talk about saving our country. Uh, here we go with the Constitution of the United States. And you people better remember this. The only keepers are the people. Now, we have a big thing going on over there in Virginia. They somehow were able to get all these Democrats into office. Well, I don't call them Democrats. I call them communist helpers. But they're trying to do a thing where they don't have to have do away with your firearms, and they're going to do away with the training. Now, what does the Constitution say? What does it say? Let's just change this around just a little bit. It says, a well-regulated militia, that means somebody who is trained and disciplined and supplied, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What in the world is Virginia thinking that they can regulate a right away? You cannot legislate a right away. You cannot do that. They are breaking the Constitution. You cannot legislate any kind of a right away from the people. And that's what they're trying to do here. Their laws are unconstitutional, and if you had any kind of a real constitutional people over there, this stuff wouldn't be going on. You know, when these people go to school to study the Constitution, become a constitutional lawyer or whatever, they don't study the Constitution. They study what other lawyers and judges said about the Constitution and not the Constitution itself. And we really run into a lot of problems here. You know, it's like your Bill of Rights. You know, you cannot go to somebody's house and break in. That no-knock warrant that the Supreme Court said it was okay is against the Constitution. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, and papers and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued only by probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation. Okay? They've changed that. They're changing the Constitution little by little by little. When you get a unconstitutional communist Supreme Court judge in there, we got problems. We really do. You know, our founding fathers were smart. They knew sometime or other that we'd have a threat to our security, and it would come from either outside the state or from within. You know that? That's why you have to have firearms. And what are firearms for? I'll tell you what. No. Let's get this over here. A small newspaper columnist wrote a piece on the Second Amendment, which was shown to me. It's a small newspaper, and it's the only place where such an opinion like this would ever see daylight. Anyway, he posed a rhetorical question. What is the Second Amendment for? And he answered, well, basically, it's so we can kill politicians. We need arms so we can resist oppression and overthrow tyrants. If that doesn't mean killing politicians and the goons they send to oppress us, what else does it mean? From that perspective, it's easy to see why so many public servants advocate gun control, knowing that their own intentions, buried in the dark recesses of their black hearts, they have an inkling of what the future may hold for them if they stay the course. Now, this was American Survival Guide, December of 1992. And you don't find this kind of stuff, you know, just floating around. I mean, people talk about it, you know, kind of whispers, but that's about the end of it. That's what the Second Amendment is for. It's always been. That's what it's been for. Nothing else. We got people in Congress and stuff, they're not following the Constitution, they're not following the Bill of Rights, they're trying to circumnavigate things, just like the Commerce Clause. The Commerce Clause was put in there for one thing, to keep the flow of goods flowing within the states so that the states couldn't tax it and add tariffs and stuff to it so they could stick money in their pockets. It was a power given to Congress to regulate commerce among the states. It was meant primarily to restrain the state power, to ensure that the free flow of goods and services among the states could keep flowing. Congress was given to regulate commerce, to make it regular. These limitations, however, are reinforced by the Necessary and Proper Clause, which limits the means available to Congress only to those that are necessary for executing the enumerated powers. But they're expanding their enumerated powers. Back in, what was it, in I gotta remember, 1800 and something. They started to change things around. They give themselves more power, trying to use the Necessary and Proper Clause. Well, if the Necessary and Proper Clause means only what the enumerated powers say it is. And they changed it, and they relied on the U.S. Supreme Court interpretation. Get something in your head. The Constitution was written so that the common man could interpret it. You don't need a damn judge to interpret what's in the Constitution. You don't need a lawyer. The common man can read that and understand what it means. In 1801 to 1835, the Commerce Clause interpretation empowered Congress to gain jurisdiction over numerous aspects of infrastructure and interstate commerce as well as non-commerce. Yeah, they gained federal control of economic matters, and then it effectively just became unlimited. They could do what they wanted. That's not wrong. That's illegal. It's illegal. Where did I put it? Looking for my Constitution. Oh, right there. You know this, I want you to understand something about the Second Amendment, people. I better zoom in just a little bit more. The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution ratifies and preserves for every citizen the right to keep and bear arms, and moreover, that neither Congress or any other instrument of the federal government can infringe upon that right because they are constitutionally barred from infringing on it. Get that in your head. They are constitutionally barred. I want you to remember something. It's unconstitutional to legislate any kind of a right out of existence. Never accept the government's infringing upon your freedoms as necessary or justified. In our liberties, people, it's the right of all human beings, and their government is established to protect those rights, not regulate them. That's the way it works, people. We have some problems here in the United States of America. They're trying to label people different things, and that's something else that pisses me off. Now, let's get back up here for just a minute on the Second Amendment. If you notice, well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. You don't see any subparagraph A, B, C, D that would stipulate what an acceptable infringement would be. Therefore, they are not allowed to infringe upon your right to keep and bear arms. Period. Now, back when Clinton was in, we had some real big problems. They were trying to label people so they could take away their control to fight back. And anyway, they got a definition of who might be, an enemy of the state. They call us as one who has strong beliefs in the Bible and the second coming of Christ, who frequently attends Bible studies, who has a high level of financing giving to a Christian cause, who homeschools for their children, and who has accumulated survival food and has a strong belief in the Second Amendment, and who distrusts big government. Any of these may qualify a person as they call this, but certainly more than one of these characters would cause us to look upon this person as a threat, and his family being in a risk situation which qualifies for government interference. Here's something else, people. This is what you're up against. The people are the enemy. Now, this comes from the Department of Human Security. It came from the Department of Homeland Security, Office of Intelligence and Analysis of Right-Wing Extremists. March of 2009. Military veterans who have fought in foreign wars and are disgruntled about the takeover of the U.S. Anti-war individual groups, tax resistance movement, militia, members who oppose most federal and state laws, regulation, authority, particularly firearm laws and regulations. Gee, that sure takes us in, doesn't it? Huh? Because they don't have the right. Alternative media, which provides interpretation of events and issues, differ radically from the present, from what is presented in mass media. So when the government puts out fake news, it's okay, but if you try to get the real news, no. Opponents of open border policies, single issues like groups or individuals who focus on a single issue or cause such as animal rights, environment, or anti-abortion. Patriot movement, a term used by right-wing extremists to link their beliefs to those commonly associated with the American Revolution. Duh. Here are the fusion centers they look for. They've established dozens of fusion centers in states and stuff. Their activities are monitored frequently. References to the Constitution, support of third-party candidates, support for an audit of the Federal Reserve. They are in opposition of a carbon tax by the United Nations, opposition to the U.S. submission to the United Nations and other World Health Organizations. Yeah. Put that up there. How can they label common people who are patriots, who love this country, as enemy of the state? Why aren't these people, the Department of Homeland Security, locking up the communist agents in our government right now? Because somebody hired them in. They hired in their buddies to protect the behinds. Just remember, according to the federal government, nowhere in the Constitution is granted the authority to abridge, restrict, or infringe in any fashion whatsoever guns or ammunition. All restrictive laws made by Congress and regulations made by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms are unconstitutional as they are outside the scope of powers granted to Congress and to the executive branch by our Constitution. Restrictions of arms and ammunition is not one of the enumerated powers delegated to Congress or to the executive branch. And these states like Virginia, who are trying to pull the wool over people's eyes and make their own laws, they're in a lot of trouble. Thanks for watching.